Now the develop persona is for editing raw files, and once you've done your basic changes you can take that into the photo persona where all the main work is done. If you load a JPEG, you'll automatically go straight into the photo persona and bypass this step completely. Okay, let's just take a general look. Along the top we have the various personas, and we're currently in the develop one. You get the information about your raw file and file size, etc. Along here, down this left hand side, you've got some basic tools, so the hand tool, zoom, red eye removal, etc. We'll go into those in a moment. And on the right hand side you've got your basic controls. You normally start on the histogram, and you can use this to work out whether your photo is correctly exposed. Now, to help you with this, we have 3 buttons here at the top, and they show clipped highlights, clipped shadows and clipped tones. Now I usually use both of these two, the highlights and the shadows, and as you can see in this particular point here, it's showing up red, which basically means this is pure white and has no information. Now we can change that by adjusting the exposure or the black point, etc. So let's just drop the exposure slightly and you'll see the information comes back. So we can adjust the exposure, which is just a straight exposure level. So you can either, on any of these options, just move the slider backwards and forwards, and you can see the histogram reacting to that. So as I move it up towards white, the histogram moves across, and if I move it to the left, the histogram moves more towards the black. If I just want to go back to normal, I can do 2 things. I can either double click the little toggle in the middle of the slider, or there is a reset here which will reset everything in this group. So if I change several items, several sliders, backwards and forwards, I can just hit reset and they'll all go back to 0. Okay, so we'll drop the exposure a little bit, and the black point, basically the further I move it to the right, you'll see the histogram move across from the left side. More and more of the pixels will go black, and as you can see, as I've done that, some of them are starting to show up blue. That basically means they're pure black. So I've probably overdone it there, so I can just pull that back until they go away. Brightness, again, this generally affects the mid-tones. So if I move the slider backwards and forwards, you'll see the whole photo from the center colors changing. Now we can increase the contrast, and you'll see the histogram expand from the middle outwards because we're increasing both the blacks and the whites at the same time. You'll see it moving out and flattening out, and you can see basically I'm getting blown out highlights and pure blacks as I move that slider up. Okay, let's bring that back down. Clarity will basically improve the edges. So if I move that up, you'll see that the brickwork becomes more defined. If I move it down, it becomes less defined. So you sometimes add a little bit of clarity there just to sharpen up the image a little bit. And the last 2 of this main section is saturation. We can increase the colour levels, and the vibrance has a similar effect but less obvious, and you can increase those colours. So we've got a brighter blue and greener grass. If your photo has a colour tint to it, you can use these two, temperature and tint, to bring the picture back to a more reasonable colour. This one's okay, but I'll show you how that affects it. So it pushes more to the yellow or more to the blue, and this one pushes more to the green or more to the magenta. And you can, so if your picture has too much magenta in it, you can drop the tint by increasing the amount of greens to balance it out. The other one that's quite useful is shadows and highlights. And basically, in the shadow areas you can lighten them up. So let's zoom up on this area here. I can just increase that. It's not affecting the white point. So I can just increase that slightly, and where we're a bit too blown out here, I can reduce the highlights and bring that down. That gives a more balanced image. Now we've done some basic changes, we can talk about this bar here. If I click in the middle, it will split the view, and we can basically run that across. So this is the after image and this is the before. And it's quite a useful tool. I quite often leave it halfway. The other option is side by side. So we've got after and before, and you can see straight away that the sky's a little bit darker, the grass is a little bit greener. So that's useful to highlight the differences. This is just a basic course, so an introduction as such. There are other options, various distortions. You can have lens correction, and you can pick the lens you have, or if the camera has the information, it'll automatically fill it in for you. But once you've done that, you can actually adjust for distortion that you may have, say on a wide angle lens. You might want to, it might actually be showing like that, and you can pull it back to be correct. You can shift it horizontally, vertically. You can rotate, which can be useful for lining up the object, but there are better ways of doing it. And scale, you can zoom in or zoom out. I'll just reset that lot. There are some other options here, chromatic aberration and defringing. That's useful where you may have purple edges or cyan edges to your images, where points of high contrast. It's quite common, and you can use this tool to remove that type of information. So that's just trying to do that now. Can't really show it on this one image because it's not really suffering from that problem. And defringe actually gives you a little bit more control. So you basically pick defringe. If you've got a purple fringe, you move this slider until you match the colour, and you can also get it to remove the complementary colour as well. So, and basically it will turn it to a grey, and you can adjust the radius and threshold until you get exactly the right amount. There's a remove lens vignette. We're not suffering from it here. Right, on the details tab, again you've got detail refinement, you've got noise reduction, and you've got noise addition. Now for detail refinement, if we move up to a detailed area, let's say here, you can increase the radius and you can increase the amount, and you can see that sharpening up. The only problem with this, it's global, so it's applying it to the entire photo, which you may not want to do. And for noise reduction, again, we're not too bad on noise here in this photo, but you can see the slightly patchy blue there. We can increase the luminance until that disappears. Now the only problem with that, it has the opposite effect. It can actually make other details less sharp. Now you can do it on luminance, i.e. on the how bright, or you can also do it with colours as well. Okay. Finally, yeah, you've got adjustments such as curves, which I won't cover here. You can change the photo to black and white, and you can not only do that, you can change how black different colours are within the photo. So if I take the blue, which is mainly the sky, and the cyan, I can darken down the sky with hardly affecting the building itself. Okay, everything we've done so far has been affecting the entire photo. So there might be cases where you actually want to only affect the sky or the object that you're actually looking at. And you've got a couple of simple tools really. You've got a gradient tool here, so you can just click on that and drag, in this case from the top. Okay, and we'll drop it down to here. And what we can do is any of these changes we make now will only be done to the red areas. And as the red area fades, then you get less and less effect. So you get more of a blend within that range. So if I change the exposure, you can see the top of the sky darkening, but leaving the bottom of the picture at the same exposure. You've also got a paint tool, so you can actually come in and just paint an area. And then say, for instance, adjust the saturation just of that area. So I can take the green out or increase the green without affecting the rest of the photo. And when we come to the last tab, those two options I just ran, it created overlays to the picture. So if I want to go back to adjusting the main picture again, click on master, back to basics, and then anything I do now will apply to the entire photo. I can go back, pick the brush which was over the grass, and say for instance change the brightness, and it'll only affect that. Now to be honest, I don't tend to use overlays in this persona. I tend to leave that to when I'm in the full photo editing side. Right, the only other main thing to look at is a cropping tool. And again, you can just grab the handles either by the corners or the sides and change what you want to crop. You can, if you click this cog, pick custom or common ratios, and there's a whole bunch of them down here. Okay, so we'll pick 5:4, and now when you move a corner, it's held in ratio, so you'll always be at a 5:4 ratio. You can type in any number ratio you care to use in these two boxes. Okay, once you've done all that, it's now time to hit develop, and it will basically take this image as it stands directly into the photo persona. And there we are. You can see it's been added as the background, which is standard. It is the only image at the moment. And you would continue using the photo persona for all your edits. Thank you.